a massive artificial lake stretching 1,000 kilometers through one of Earth's driest deserts. Water volume equivalent to all 5 Great Lakes combined. After 18 months of construction, satellite images reveal something nobody expected. Underground aquifers are rising faster than the pumped water itself. Is this humanity's greatest environmental rescue, or the beginning of an ecological catastrophe? Imagine watching your farmland turn to sand before your eyes. That's the reality for 500 million people living across Africa's Sahel region. Every single year, the Sahara Desert expands southward by 48 kilometers, swallowing villages, crops, and entire ecosystems. To put that in perspective, that's like losing an area the size of Manhattan every 3 months. Lake Chad tells the story most dramatically. In the 1960s, it was one of Africa's largest freshwater bodies, supporting 30 million people across 4 countries. Today, it has shrunk by 90%. What was once a thriving fishing hub is now mostly desert. Ancient aquifers that took thousands of years to fill are being drained in decades. Wells that once hit water at 50 feet now have to drill down 500 feet or more. The consequences stretch far beyond thirst. When water disappears, so does food security. Crop failures trigger political instability. Families abandon their ancestral lands, joining the 86 million climate refugees projected across sub-Saharan Africa by 2050. Regional conflicts erupt over shrinking water sources. The Niger, the Nile, the Congo Basin, all becoming flashpoints for potential water wars. For decades, governments and aid organizations tried smaller fixes. Tree planting initiatives like the Great Green Wall launched with massive ambition, a green belt stretching 8,000 kilometers across the continent. After 15 years, it's only 4% complete. The harsh reality is that saplings die without consistent water, and the Sahel doesn't have consistent water. Small-scale irrigation projects help individual communities, but can't reverse continental desertification trends. Rainwater harvesting sounds promising until you realize rainfall patterns have become so erratic that communities can't depend on them. Some years bring floods, others bring nothing. Desalination plants work brilliantly on coastlines, but the Sahel sits hundreds of kilometers inland, pumping desalinated water that far requires massive energy infrastructure that poor nations simply don't have. Traditional dams create as many problems as they solve, displacing millions of people, silting up within decades, and sparking international tensions when upstream nations control downstream water supplies. Groundwater pumping offered temporary relief, but proved catastrophically unsustainable. Aquifers recharge far too slowly, and overpumping causes the land itself to sink. Communities are literally watching the ground collapse beneath their feet. Enter the most ambitious water project ever conceived. The plan is to recreate Lake Mega Chad, an ancient inland sea that existed 7,000 years ago and was larger than the Caspian Sea. The target zone spans the Chad Basin, extending westward across the Sahel, utilizing natural below-sea level depressions that once held water when the climate was wetter. The engineering concept centers on 3 massive water sources, converging into one interconnected system. First, a 600-kilometer pipeline from the Atlantic Ocean, pumping 2,000 cubic meters per second. That's enough water to fill an Olympic swimming pool every 1.25 seconds, running continuously forever. Second, a controlled diversion from the Congo River, tapping into Africa's second-longest river system. Third, potential connection channels from the Mediterranean through carefully designed routes. The target dimensions are staggering. When complete, this artificial inland sea would stretch 1,000 kilometers long and reach widths of 50 to 150 kilometers at various points. The total water volume at capacity would be 350,000 cubic kilometers, comparable to the combined volume of all 5 Great Lakes in North America. Imagine an entirely new Great Lakes system appearing in the middle of the Sahara Desert. The engineering consortium bringing this vision to life represents an unprecedented international collaboration. The African Union provides political coordination across 11 participating nations. Chinese construction firms, backed by Belt and Road Initiative funding, supply the heavy machinery and technical expertise proven in massive domestic water projects like the South-North Water Transfer. European climate groups contribute environmental monitoring systems and sustainability frameworks. Phase 1 focuses on the Atlantic Pipeline, the project's circulatory system. Engineers are constructing a 600-kilometer conduit carrying 2,000 cubic meters of water every second from the ocean toward the Chad Basin. To visualize this scale, imagine a river twice as wide as a highway, flowing faster than you can run, never stopping. This isn't a simple pipe. It's 22 segments of massive tunnels and elevated aqueducts, each requiring its own pumping station. Every 100 kilometers, a solar-powered pumping station rises from the landscape. Each station features a 500-megawatt solar farm That's enough electricity to power 375,000 American homes. Dedicated solely to pushing water forward and upward, the pipeline must climb 2,000 meters in elevation across its journey, fighting gravity every meter of the way. Special pressure regulation systems prevent the pipes from bursting under the immense hydraulic forces involved. Phase 2 begins flooding the designated basin areas. Engineers designed a hybrid freshwater-saltwater system to balance environmental impact against project feasibility. Pure ocean water would create another Dead Sea. Pure diverted river water would drain the Congo system. The solution is a carefully calibrated mixture monitored by smart sensors at hundreds of points, with automated gates controlling flow rates and preventing overfilling. Phase 3 represents the boldest environmental engineering bet. The theory is that a massive water body in the desert will trigger a regional evaporation cycle. Water evaporates, forms clouds, generates rainfall patterns across the surrounding 500-kilometer radius. If it works, the Sahel gradually greens again. If the calculations are wrong, the region might face destructive storm systems instead of gentle rains. The timeline stretches 15 to 20 years for full completion. Total estimated cost sits between $50 and $80 billion, making it one of the most expensive infrastructure projects in human history, roughly equivalent to building 15 major international airports from scratch. The lake itself is only part of the transformation. Around it, an entire economic ecosystem is being built simultaneously. The primary pipeline network extends 2,400 kilometers of main conduits, wider than the massive oil pipelines crossing Alaska or Siberia. These aren't simple water pipes, but engineered tunnels large enough to walk through, fitted with sensors, maintenance access points, and backup systems. 22 solar farms, each generating 500 megawatts, power the pumping stations that keep water flowing uphill. That's 11,000 megawatts of renewable energy capacity, being added to a region that previously had minimal electricity infrastructure. These solar installations don't just serve the water project, they're electrifying communities along the route, bringing power to millions who previously lived without it. 8 new harbor cities are planned along the lake's shores. These aren't simple villages, but designed port cities built for fishing, shipping, and tourism industries that don't yet exist. Architects are planning for populations of 200,000 to 500,000 people per city, essentially building 8 new Miamis in the middle of the Sahara Desert. The Trans-Sahel Railway represents another mega undertaking within the mega undertaking. Engineers are laying 3,500 kilometers of track, connecting all the planned lake cities. This railway will do for the Sahel what the Transcontinental Railroad did for America: unite isolated regions into an integrated economy. Currently, transporting goods across the Sahel means unreliable trucks on deteriorating roads. The railway promises reliable freight transport, passenger service, and dramatically reduced shipping costs. 4 major mountain tunnels, each 15 to 30 kilometers long, are being blasted through the Tibesti and Ahagar mountain ranges. These tunnels allow water and rail lines to pass through obstacles that would otherwise make the project impossible. Boring through solid rock in 50 degrees Celsius heat, while sandstorms rage outside, represents some of the most difficult construction conditions on Earth. If everything works as designed, the economic transformation could be historic. Construction alone is generating 15 million direct jobs. Welders, engineers, truck drivers, security personnel, cooks feeding work crews, and thousands of other roles. For regions with 40 to 60% unemployment, this represents a generation-defining opportunity. The agricultural potential looks even more revolutionary. Engineers project 200,000 square kilometers of new irrigated farmland surrounding the lake, an area larger than the entire state of Nebraska suddenly becoming productive cropland. Nations that currently import 80% of their food could become exporters. The projected GDP boost of $120 billion annually across participating nations would lift tens of millions out of poverty. Tourism represents an entirely new industry. The Sahara Sea concept imagines beach resorts, water sports, and ecological tourism in a landscape currently defined by emptiness. Early projections suggest 50 million annual tourists within 20 years of completion, rivaling the Mediterranean as a destination. Picture cruise ships on an inland sea, luxury resorts with Sahara sunset views, and adventure tourism in surrounding desert regions, now accessible via modern infrastructure. Internal shipping routes promise to cut transport costs by 40% for landlocked nations suddenly gaining water access. Chad, Niger, and Mali, nations with no coastline and therefore limited trade capacity, would gain maritime economies. Container ships could move goods between lake ports for a fraction of current truck transport costs, reducing carbon emissions while boosting trade efficiency. The environmental claims are perhaps most ambitious. areas. Increased evaporation should create new rainfall patterns, greening the Sahel over decades. New vegetation across thousands of square kilometers could absorb 2 gigatons of carbon dioxide annually, equivalent to taking 400 million cars off the road. The water body itself might cool the surrounding 500-kilometer radius by 3 to 5 degrees Celsius, making currently uninhabitable areas livable. Wildlife corridors could restore habitat for endangered species like the addax and scimitar oryx, driven to near extinction by desertification. After 18 months of construction, here's what actually exists on the ground. Engineers have completed 180 kilometers of pipeline, 15% of the total required length. 3 pumping stations are operational, running test cycles and demonstrating that the solar-powered concept works at scale. The first test basin has been filled near Lake Chad, creating a 50-square-kilometer artificial reservoir that's attracting migratory birds for the first time in decades. Then came the discovery nobody predicted. Underground aquifers beneath the test basin are rising faster than the pumped water. Hydrologists are still analyzing what this means. It could indicate that ancient underground water systems remain more active than satellite surveys suggested, which would be extraordinarily good news. Or it could signal unstable underground connections that might cause unpredictable flooding or collapses. The truth is, nobody knows yet. Delays have pushed the original 2028 first phase deadline to 2032, possibly beyond. Political instability in Chad and Niger has halted construction on 2 major pipeline sections. Work crews evacuated twice due to regional conflicts. Equipment worth hundreds of millions sits in ports, stuck in customs disputes as governments argue over tax classifications and import regulations. 2 major contractors pulled out over payment disputes, claiming they haven't been paid for work completed months ago. Leaked documents revealed something troubling. Chinese construction firms appear to be prioritizing routes that facilitate mineral extraction over optimal water distribution patterns. Critics argue the project is becoming more about accessing the region's lithium, cobalt, and rare earth deposits than about solving the water crisis. Project leaders deny this, but the documents raise questions about whose interests this mega-project truly serves. International reaction splits sharply. China has committed $30 billion and sees this as a strategic investment in both African goodwill and access to trade routes. European Union nations have contributed 8 billion euros in climate adaptation funds, motivated partly by hope that stabilizing the Sahel reduces migration pressure toward Europe. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are investing in water technology components and quietly negotiating future agricultural land leases around the lake. But Egypt views the Congo River diversion with alarm, fearing reduced Nile River flow that could devastate Egyptian agriculture. Downstream Congo Basin countries accuse Chad of water theft, claiming the diversion violates international water law. Morocco worries that altered Atlantic current patterns could affect their fisheries. These aren't minor diplomatic tensions. They're potential causes of future conflicts. The United Nations debates whether this qualifies as geoengineering, requiring international regulation. No precedent exists for deliberately creating a sea this large where none existed before. The World Bank cautiously supports the project, but demands ongoing environmental reviews, with power to halt construction if ecological damage exceeds projections. Climate activists remain divided. Some see it as necessary climate intervention, others as dangerous hubris. A Nature Journal survey of climate scientists revealed the division clearly. 47% oppose the project, citing unquantifiable environmental risks. 31% support it, arguing desperate circumstances demand bold action. 22% remain undecided, waiting for more data from the test basin before forming conclusions. 18 months into construction, Africa's artificial lake is 15% complete. Nature is already responding in ways engineers didn't anticipate. Underground aquifers rising unexpectedly, bird populations returning to test zones, vegetation appearing around water sources. Whether these signs indicate ecosystem healing or warning of catastrophic instability remains unknown. This $80 billion gamble could save 500 million people from displacement, starvation, and water scarcity. Or it could become Africa's greatest environmental mistake, a monument to hubris that destabilizes underground geology, creates dead zones in a newly formed salt lake, and triggers conflicts over resources that don't yet exist. The shocking aquifer discovery presents 2 possibilities. Either the Earth is cooperating, revealing that the region's water systems possess resilience nobody expected, or the planet is warning that underground instabilities could cause collapses, earthquakes triggered by water weight, or hydrological chaos across the continent. Completion lies decades away. Will the political will survive 15 to 20 years of construction across 11 nations with different governments, priorities, and conflicts? Will the money last when cost overruns inevitably strike? Will the Earth cooperate? Or will geological surprises halt the project halfway through? So what do you think? If you had the power to decide right now, would you continue building this artificial sea or cancel the project before it's too late? Drop your answer in the comments below and subscribe to follow this story as it develops over the coming years. Because this might just be the most important environmental project of the 21st century.